Charles W. Eliot once said, "The efficient man is the man who thinks for himself and is capable of thinking hard and long." Good day. My name is Robin Jackson and welcome to another episode of Cult Life. Hi, and welcome to another show, another episode of Cult Life with me, Robin Jackson. And today's show is all about mind control. It's a technique that's used by many a cult, and we need to unpack this whole phenomenon. I experienced it as a Jehovah's Witness, growing up in the religion. The whole mind control issue, and many others have written and spoken about how their different groups use the technique, the mind control technique, to keep you in and to keep you within the cult. So let's unpack this. Now, when I talk about mind control, it's not some mystical, magical, and invisible force that cults use to take away people's free will. Rather, I'm talking about a psychological technique that cult leaders attempt to control their members with. It does not turn people into some remote-controlled robots. Although, if you look at some of the cult members, you might think that they become drones and humanoids, just blindly following the leader or the leaders of a cult. However, in contrast, it is what I call a dishonest influence placed very inconspicuously on cult members by the cult. So instead of mind control being some sort of irresistible force used to take over people's minds, it's much more like a loaded gun. And what the cult leadership does is points this gun, in inverted commas, at a member and says, "If you leave us, you will lose all your friends and family. If you don't conform, you will go to hell. If you don't give us money, then you will fail in business," etc. Now, with reference to these statements that I just made in the previous little session, the only live round, in inverted commas, in that gun is the threat of loss of family and friends who are in the cult when a member wants to leave. Jehovah's Witnesses are very renowned for practicing shunning, and so do Scientologists, and I think Mormons to an extent as well. The other two rounds, in my opinion, are blanks. So the technique of mind control can be broken up into several techniques too. However, collectively they make up this deceptive means of controlling people's thoughts and actions. So let's look at we'll look at a few of these different techniques within mind control that cults and some of these sects use to control members. Now, the first one that I want to highlight is deception. Cults need to operate and recruit using deception. And the reason for this is if people knew beforehand what their true practices are, they will not join the cult. They hide the truth from you until they think you are ready to accept it. Imagine if the Heaven's Gate cult was a very the whole issue with the Heaven's Gate and the mass suicide there. Is a perfect example. Imagine if the leader of the Heaven's Gate cult was open and honest about the group, coming and telling them outright that by joining the cult you would have to wear strange clothes, get castrated, and drink poison. I doubt whether he would have had any takers. People would have run a mile if that was stated up front. And interestingly, Steve Hassan recalls how he was a a disillusioned student. He recently split from a girlfriend and was desperately trying to find his way in life when he was approached by a group of people calling themselves the One World Crusade. It was only much later that he realized that the group actually belonged to the Moonies, which is another very popular cult. Another member of Opus Dei for 20 years and a close observer of the organization's inner workings outlines in his personal notes how he was personally recruited by the founder himself while he was enrolled at the DYA Academy. He was pressed to attend weekly sessions at which the leader would read from the Bible, talk about the necessity of observing Christian norms, and reciting a lot of prayers. But at no point during these sessions was reference made to Opus Dei. The introduction was done privately on a one-on-one basis. Escrivia, the leader, then pretended he wanted to know more about his students and asked those who interested him to fill in a form giving biographic and personal information. And when the ex-member was asked to join, he was caught completely off guard. He later wrote to a friend stating, "I did not dare refuse, and it was a weakness that I began to regret the same day." So to hide what the group is really like, a lot of cults normally have a very, very slick and well-rehearsed public relations front. And this public relations front usually displays in the image of an organization that helps the poor, supports charities, supports research, supports the environment or peace. And very often they will tell you how happy you will be in this group. They are a happy people. But you will not be told what life really will be like. Moreover, nor will they tell you what they really believe in the first place. Introduction to these beliefs and adherence is a slow and gradual process. You will not notice any change until you find yourself practicing and believing things that would have made you run a mile if you knew these things from the start, I always say. So, a key point to remember is that no legitimate group needs to lie or mislead you about what they practice or believe. They should be open and upfront about their doctrines, their beliefs, and what their members are required to do. So deception is one form of mind control that is used by many cults. The other one I want to mention, the next technique under mind control is what I like to call the exclusivity in the group. A common thread that often runs through all of these cults and is a chief identifying mark of their mind control is the claim of being the one true church. Jehovah's Witnesses are known for that, claiming that they are the one true religion or the one true church. Salvation can only be attained. Armageddon can only be survived if you are a member of the Jehovah's Witnesses. A normal religious organization would not have any problem with you moving to another similar organization as long as you stayed in that religion. And that's because it's the belief system that matters and not the membership to an organization. I'm going to repeat that. It's the belief system that matters and not a specific membership to an organization. That could be a very good identifying mark between a cult and a mainstream religion as well. For instance, if you were a Christian, then you could move from one church to another and still be Christian. So I'm going to make the example. You could move from being a Anglican church member to becoming a Moravian church member or a Catholic church member, but overall you'd still be viewed as Christian because it's the belief system that matters. However, in contrast, cult leaders tell you that You can only be saved in their organization alone. So it's the membership to that specific organization. That's the only way that you will attain salvation or a happy life or whatever it is that they're trying to achieve. All the others miss the mark, and no other organization has the truth, they say. And an example of this can also be found in the writings of the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. And I'm going to quote from one of the Brigham Young discourses, one of the journals. It's written there, it says, "Every intelligent person under the heavens that does not, when informed, acknowledge that Joseph Smith Jr. is a prophet of God, is in darkness and opposed to us and to Jesus and his kingdom on earth." And then it goes on to say, what does the Christian world know about God? Nothing. Why? So far as the things of God are concerned, they are the veriest fools. They know neither God nor the things of God. And this was taken out of the journals of the Mormon Church, the church writings. So exclusivity is a big thing. And Martha Beck, she's a very well-known life coach. She's an ex-Mormon as well, and author of the book Leaving the Saints. A very good book, by the way, I've read. Do yourself a favor and read Leaving the Saints by Martha Beck. And she writes that Mormons who leave the fold, unlike apostates from other faiths, tend to avoid joining any other church. I think there are two reasons for this. First, because Mormonism is so all-pervading, so exclusive of other creeds. And second, because Latter-day Saints are actually taught to test religious claims against their own sense of truth. I think this applies to the Jehovah's Witnesses and many other cults as well. It's exactly what she says there. And the Watchtower Society also claims to be the only source for truth in the world. It says, and I'm quoting from the Watchtower of July the 15th, 1960, it says, "It is God's sole collective channel for the flow of biblical truth to men on earth." And that is what the Jehovah's Witnesses believe, that the organization is the sole channel for the flow of biblical truth to men on earth. Mary Baker Eddy, who was the founder of Christian Science, also claimed sole collective channel for truth. And I'm quoting from Science and Health, the journal there of the Christian Science group. It states there, "Our master practiced Christian healing, but left no definitive rule for demonstrating this principle of healing and preventing disease. This rule remained to be discovered by Christian Science." The Unification Church's leader, Sun Myung Moon, we all know them as the Moonies, claims exclusive knowledge as well. And Reverend Moon, as he's known, stated or wrote in The Way of the World, page 20, it says, "We are the only people who truly understand the heart of Jesus and the hope of Jesus." Exclusivity as well, again. The self-styled leader and evangelist of the ICC's Cape Town branch, Werner Vos, here in South Africa, made these remarks when he was interviewed. He said, "We are the only church that preaches the Bible. All others, such as Catholics and Dutch Reformed, are wrong. They don't know the Bible and are not biblical Christians like us." So you can see the common thread there. Exclusivity, we're the sole channel for biblical truth to men. Everybody else misses the mark. Salvation belongs, if you want to attain salvation, you have to belong to us. So cult leaders need to make you believe there is nowhere else you can go and still be saved. If you ever leave the one true church, then you are going to hell or you will be destroyed, is what is often inscribed in the members' minds. And of course, this is a fear-based control tactic designed to keep, members in the cult. It also gives the cult leaders tremendous power over their recruits. So this is this power is wielded very inconspicuously. They know that by you equating leaving the cult with leaving God, or leaving the only chance you have in succeeding in life, then you will obey the cult leaders even if you disagree with them. And that very often happens in many instances. So exclusivity is also used as a threat. It is a way of controlling your behavior through fear. Any group that says you must belong to their organization to be saved is almost certainly a cult. The bottom line is be very suspicious of groups that claims to be better than all the others or have a better grasp of the truth and superior to the rest. Then there is also the tactic of intimidation. Cult leadership is very often venerated and feared. The cult leadership will claim to have direct authority from God to control almost every aspect of your life. To disagree with the leadership is usually equated to disagreeing with God. If the cult is not religious, then disagreeing with the leaders or the program will still be seen as rebellious or stupid. And guilt is very often used to control you in this way. Maybe the reason you're not making money is because you're not with the program, or maybe the reason why you're not able to convert new recruits is because you are puffed up with pride and full of sin. It could never be that the program isn't working or those new recruits have valid reasons for not joining. It's always your fault. You know, it's a guilt trip. You're always wrong. And so you must try harder. You will also be made to feel very guilty for disobeying any of the cult's written or unwritten rules. And one of the key principal ways cults use to create this guilt in you is by character assassination. This is a false reasoning used by people or groups who have no real arguments, and they very often attack your character. And if you look up character assassination, there's many examples of how character assassination can be done, and just to familiarize yourself with that. So this practice whereby 1, 2, or 3, and very often character assassination is done by 2 or 3 members attacking the questioning or the person that is disagreeing. It's very often done by 2 or 3 members, and this practice by 2 or 3 members of a cult attacking the character of another person is very often called what they term a breaking session. And this can sometimes go on for hours, and some cults will not stop until their victim breaks down in tears and cries uncontrollably. So cult members therefore become fearful of disobeying or openly disagreeing with the leadership. And in contrast, healthy organizations are not threatened by openly debating issues, which is very important. Another mind control technique that cult members or cults use is what I like to term relationship control and love bombing. Now, as humans, we are profoundly affected by those around us, whether we like it or not. We are not, people are not islands. Cults know this and realize that if they control your relationships, then they can control you. And when you first go into a cult meeting for the first time, they will practice what is very often termed love bombing. And this is where you suddenly get instant friends and family. And according to testimonies from ex-Moonies, their recruitment technique stretches to befriending people who seem likely to join. They then invite these potential new recruits for weekends away without once mentioning their association with the Moonies. And when these so-called potential recruits are surrounded by the new friends, they are taken to a commune where they participate in games and a few soul-searching seminars. However, most of the recruits will not be new at all, but are already converts who pretend to be at ease with revealing their darker secrets and denouncing their parents. This form of love bombing would eventually wear down the most doubtful of people. And I recall a very similar tactic used during my time with the Jehovah's Witnesses. Frequently, witnesses are encouraged, sometimes from the platform, that they should put on a happy face and welcome potential new members with open arms. So put on that smile and pretend that we are a happy people all around. And it will all seem so wonderful. How can such a loving group be wrong? However, you will soon learn that if you ever disagree with them or leave the cult, you will lose all your so-called friends. And this unspoken threat influences your actions and your thought processes in a cult. Things that normally would have made you complain will pass by silently because you don't want to be ridiculed or ostracized. Like in an unhealthy relationship, love is conditional. Cults hate others being able to influence you and therefore will try to cut you off from your friends and your family. They will maneuver your life so as to maximize your contact with cult members and minimize your contact with people outside the group. So that's why most of them are very insular organizations. You're only allowed to associate with members within the group. A point to take heed of here is to remember that true friendships develop over time. Beware of instant friends, and be cautious of a group that tells you who you can and cannot see, or who you can and cannot associate with. Another tactic or another technique that falls under mind control when it comes to cults and how they influence members is information control. Cults tell their members not to read any information outside the cult. All information from outside the cult is considered to be evil, especially if that information is in opposition to the cult. Only information which is supplied by the cult is true, and here too cults label any information against it as persecution or in some instances spiritual pornography. The cult, the Jehovah's Witnesses I was a member of, used to label it apostate literature. So no doubt books like this one, that I've written, Losing the Faith and Cults How They Work, and many others, will likewise fall into their respective labels for cults. You run the risk of being expelled from the group if you are caught in possession of any such literature. Members are trained to instantly destroy any information critical of that group or the cult, and not even entertain the thought that what could be said there could possibly be true. So it's right to conclude from this that those who control the information control the person. Naturally, a person who does not consider all information will make unbalanced decisions. And throughout history, the practice of filtering information available or trying to discredit it, not on the basis of how true it is, but how it supports the party line is a common mind control technique. And in many instances, on a large scale, information control is practiced within governments, within nationalities, and so forth. And to give you an example, this little extract from the Watchtower's monthly publication, which was called Our Kingdom Ministry, the September 2007 edition is a classic example of information control used by cults. And it says there, ask the question, does the faithful and discreet slave endorse independent groups of witnesses who meet together to engage in scriptural research? No, it does not, it goes on to say. And yet in various parts of the world, a few associates of our organization have formed groups to do independent research on Bible-related subjects. And then it rattles off in terms of how Jehovah's Witnesses should abstain from this practice. So that's a typical example of the Jehovah's Witness organization, or the leaders of the Watchtower organization, trying to control what is being researched and what is being debated by the rank and file. Members are encouraged to only consult research Watchtower publications for personal research purposes. So thereby they control the information that the rank and file receive. There are also examples. Another example is another former Opus Dei member, Mr. Larkin, and he explained how every book that could be read by Opus Dei members carried a censorship rating that ranged from 1 to 6. So books that were rated with the number 1 could be read by everybody. Books rated with the number 2 could only be read if permission was granted. The books rated between 3 and 5 could only be read by established members and also depended on the amount of time they belonged to Opus Dei. And lastly, those books which were rated with a number 6 were completely banned to everybody. Legitimate groups have nothing to fear from their members researching and looking into other publications, to see if what their doctrines and what they believe is true. The internet has become a valuable resource or source of information, and this tool has proven to be a thorn in the side of many of these cults. And they frequently discourage members from using it. I know when at one stage the Jehovah's Witnesses encouraged their members not to spend too much time on the internet because of the risk of them finding out or stumbling upon apostate websites, as they say. And furthermore, I do admit that some information on the internet should be taken with a pinch of salt, but the vast majority of the information about cults is dead accurate. In my opinion, any organization that has to constantly warn its followers against using the internet or against outside or reading books critical of the organization, in my opinion, they have a lot to hide. And certainly many of these groups would much rather cover up much of their past and their present. So if you are instructed by a group not to read any information critical of that group, then it is a sure sign of a cult that you are involved in. Then there's also the issue of reporting structures. Now, in a mind control cult, you must be careful what you say or do. The walls have ears, as they say, and everyone is encouraged to look out for struggling brothers and sisters, or the brothers and sisters who have fallen by the wayside, or those who are inactive. Cult members are encouraged to report what they see to the leadership. Information is often given in the strictest of confidence and when reporting to the leadership, and this information is then used by the leadership to convince members that they have a supernatural link. It's the unsuspecting member does not realize there's a very natural mechanism behind this whole revelation. Somebody has seen you somewhere and ratted you out to the leadership, and the result is that people in a mind control cult will often hide their true thoughts and feelings. Instead, they wear a figurative mask that presents them as this perfect cult member. And the mask is very often a defense against being reported to the leadership or being punished for not measuring up. Members very often feel they do not or never measure up to the cult's ideals. They feel the others around them do, but in reality, the others feel exactly the same way. And that's exactly how I felt during my time in the Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah, and the cults often, a lot of organizations build up an incredible edifice of do's and don'ts that the members try their best to meet and adhere to. And it ends up letting many of the cult members feel guilty because they cannot satisfy or adhere to many of these do's and don'ts and the rules and regulations. And it results that, in the cult members trying to deceive outsiders as well as fellow cult members. Close friendships are also very rarely formed in cults. If they do, the cult leaders see this as a threat and very often move these people away from each other. Nothing is allowed that can be more powerful than the members' allegiance to the group and its leaders. So leadership is the leadership of the cult. As I said, cults could have a singular leader or a group of leaders that run the show, and very often have strict reporting structures as well when it comes to this. Another mind control technique is time control. And cults keep their members so busy with activities and meetings that the members do not have the time to think about their involvement in this group. This also keeps them away from their family and their friends and keeps them immersed in the cult environment. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON, better known as the Hare Krishnas, demands a very strict routine from its full-time members, which some experts say could be seen as destructive. A typical day for these members, the full-time members, starts at 3 a.m. With prayers and goes on till about 6 a.m. After a meal, there will be studying of the literature, further services. Remaining chores are also done before bedtime, which is at 10 p.m. So that's an extreme example where cult members, full-time cult members, are kept extremely busy, and there's no time to actually really think about your involvement in the group. And the key point to remember here is that never-ending compulsory meetings and tasks is a sure sign that you are dealing with a cult. So we have seen how mind control is used as an effective tool to recruit as well as control unsuspecting cult members. And we must remember that people are not perfect. But if these techniques are constantly employed, you are more than likely dealing with a cult. So it's good to do research, independent research, I say, about the group that you are involved in. So amongst other things, under mind control, exclusivity is a key factor. Intimidation, relationship control and love bombing, information control, reporting structures, time control. And I encourage many of the listeners to read Steve Hassan's book called Combating Cult Mind Control, which is a very good resource for members who are doubting and who are wanting to research their individual groups to see if they are involved in a cult, if they have doubts. And it's also good for loved ones who have members who are stuck in a cult to know what they are going through and to get more information and how these organizations work and how to actually possibly get your loved one out of a cult. So that's our show for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. It was some good information that you could possibly use going forward. Until next time, this is me, Robin Jackson, signing off, and catch you next week. Bye-bye for now.